Welcome everybody to this week's session, our contact session, our face-to-face session. As always, feel welcome to ask questions at any time, and we'll be, I'll try and answer all your questions. So for this week, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go through a collage of photographs. This is one of the projects that I worked on in Nigeria and Africa. And this was quite an interesting one. So this is just the very, very first phase. It's a few photos from our very first site visit. The project was for a consortium, Chevron, Sasol, and a few other companies, Shamkureti and Technip, and all of them were responsible for developing the oil and gas installation in the Escravos Delta. Basically, the GTL or gas to liquid technology still belongs to Sasol as part of the continuing patent. They were heavily involved in the project, and we were responsible for the provisioning of the 5,300 man camp or pioneer camp that was going to be constructed for the project. All right, so let's get going, and there you can see just. For a start, this is basically where the project was. This is in the Niger Delta, close to the Escravos River, and you can see that's sort of there, Western Africa, Nigeria. Really a busy part of Africa. There's about 14 million people living in Lagos alone. In all of the time that we spent there, I only saw one traffic light in the whole of Lagos, and at no time did it work at all. So it was interesting to see how the people from Nigeria managed to get going and make sure that they maintain their lifestyles. Obviously for them, they're used to living in Nigeria, so it's nothing funny for them. They've got some of the most impressive clothes, and they're really a culture-rich nation. And strangely enough, they're not the most corrupt nation in the world. So that's interesting always to see how that goes. All right, so the ESS, or the company that I worked for at that stage, was ESS. Hello, Fiona. How are you?
Hi, Joshua. Hello, everyone.
Oh, good. It's nice to see you here. I've basically just started, and I'm just going to run through a few photographs of this project that I worked on. So this is basically just the second slide that I've got. But before we go on, have you got any questions that you want to ask about the normal uni stuff? Anything that I can assist you with in the meantime?
No, I'm fine.
All right, great. All right, so anytime during the presentation, if you have a question, just ask. As I say, there's just a bunch of photos, and I'll just show you. I'll just show more or less, how the project ran. This is just the first phase, the site visit, basically. So this was the Escravos, the gas to liquid project, and what we had to do is we had to come up with a solution to, in a really relatively short period of time of about 7 months, come up with a solution to house 5,300 people on a man-made island. All right, so I'll show you the island just now. It was based on the similar technique that they used in Dubai for constructing the Palm Island. And of course, we had to do the catering and dining facilities as well, the office space, they had an office that they needed, and all the utilities that go with that. Now, remember, this is Nigeria. All right, so we don't have electricity, we don't have running water, and we also don't have any kind of garbage disposal system in place, so we had to put in incinerators, anything like that. So you can see there's the timelines were really, really quickly. It's a relatively short contract, basically 6 to 7 months, and we had to do everything. So this is what the site looked like when shortly before the start of the project, and you can see there's this open area over here. This is what we call the man-made island, and the photos that I'm going to show you is actually preceding this diagram, and I'm also going to show you If you can follow the mouse on the screen, I'm going to show you what we did with the wolf over there, and just a few interesting things that we encountered on this project. All right, so this is basically the first day that we were on site in March 2004, and you can see this is now where the man-made island was constructed. The sand that I'm standing on at the moment needs to still be compacted, so we expected the compaction to take at least 6 to 7 weeks, and of course that compaction would further reduce the level of the man-made island. Right, so we had problems with trying to determine the final level of the site. There you can see this is being in Nigeria, everything has to be really secure, so we had to make sure that we had guards and security all the way with us, and you can see also the barbed wire fencing on the walls there. Everything is really secure. It didn't help much. We still had kidnappings and people going missing and ransom notes, so it was interesting times at the project. And there's a very young me on site. This is we were doing the site visit and we're just walking around. This is next to the wharf. Now you can't really see the wharf. I'll show you a little bit later another photo. But there's a temporary wharf over here on the right-hand side, and that's what we had to work with. All right, so you can see there's the main facility wall. There's the erosion compaction that they've got over there, and there's the other side of the wharf that you can see. All right, so everything that you see on this slide, everything over here is man-made. All right, so this is an artificial island that had to be constructed, and this was done by another contractor. We were not responsible for that. We were just responsible for the pioneer camp. So really interesting to see how they went about it. So on this side, on the right-hand side of the sketch of the photo here, this is the Escravos River. And Escravos obviously means slaves, so it's an enslaved nation, and that's where the name comes from. And there you can see there's our Escravos River. Today, that day was a specifically misty day, so it's really misty, and you can't really see far. But on the other side, you can see the other side of the river as well. It's really a big river. It's almost like the Swan River in Perth. It looks like the ocean, but it's actually just a river at this stage, at this point where the site was. And there you can see this is the part of the wharf that we had to construct, and this was what we found on site, and we had to obviously come up with plans to offload all our heavy equipment, graders, compactors, 977 Caterpillars, anything like that we were going to use on site. We had to come up with solutions of how to get the equipment off the barges. Everything came in by barge. There are no roads going to Escravos, so we had to bring in everything by barge, and you'll see the barges a little bit later on as well. And there you can see there's another nice photograph of the river. Really misty that day. It's almost, well, it's definitely tropical. It's on the equator. So if I recall correctly, this day it was about 40 degrees and the humidity was just about 80–85%. So it was really misty. And the moment you open the door from your ute or your four-wheel drive, you immediately get wet because of that, because of the humidity that's just constantly everywhere. There are some existing services that we had to take into account. This is basically the furthest edge of the site that we had to encounter or that we had to work with. So the existing services, they didn't really have diagrams. We had to make sure that we take that into account as well when we do our excavations in the man-made island. So, but you can see here the vegetation was already taken over, and there's a part of original island. So in there's a little bit of a gap between the man-made island and the original island. Now the problem that we encountered with the brush over here is that the pirates or the local community, tend to hide in those bushes, and then at night they would come out and rob the site, the construction site, or they would kidnap some of the personnel. And there you can see that's what it looks like. It looks like a beach, because what we did is the contractors dredged the river, and this is how they came up with the man-made island. Alright, so there you can see we're just taking a few photographs to make sure that we sort of familiarize ourselves with the situation on site. You can see there, the guy with the red shirt there, that's me, really thin at that stage. Yeah, that's a few years ago. As I say, really our day, safety, of course, always a concern. And this was the first real project in Africa that we encountered heavy-duty safety regulation. Before this, all the projects that we worked on were relatively easy in terms of health and safety aspects that we had to encounter. Alright, so you'll see the next couple of photographs is just basically I stood in one spot and I tried to get a 360-degree view of the area. There you can see there's a small little site office that they erected, generator with some lighting, and the lights there specifically, no other reason than for security, because the indigenous people would come through here, and a little bit later on I'll show you we went for an aerial inspection as well by helicopter, and that gave us a clear indication of where the shanty towns were, and the shanty towns are actually really close to the site, just on the other side of the bush over here. So that obviously created another problem. So the gas to liquid site was, the first phase of the gas to liquid site was already in operation, and we had to work around that. We were going to get a constant feed of gas for the kitchen and dining facilities from the plant, so that made it a little bit cheaper to run. But there you can see the facility is already up and running, producing products for Chevron, and Chevron was the main sort of anchor for this project. And there you can see this is just a depth gauge. This is initially when the contractor left the site. This is where the sand level was, and as you can see, it's gone down considerably, and we expected it to go down even further. Later on during the contract, the main contractor for the site over there, for the gas to liquid plant, required some more filling, so they skimmed off another meter from the site, which lowered the level even further. And there you can just see it. It looks like a beach. All of this actually a man-made island. Some areas were more, the moisture content was higher, obviously because it was a little bit thinner. And you can see obviously the vegetation took over really quickly. And there you can see that's the original shanty towns and the masts in the background over there. Alright, and remember that's the other little photo. There's our site office, and there's the security light that we had on site. This is just our inspection team running around a little bit, trying to figure out exactly how we're going to work out the levels. Obviously, as you can see, the site was supposed to be level, but no, it ended up not being so level, and we had to compensate our design for that. There you can see constantly in the background there's always security people around. Working in Nigeria is always going to be fun. There we're leaving the main compound, going to the other side of the site, part of the site inspection. Right, we also had to install these units right around the installation. Lookouts cost a fortune to get them there, and at the end of the day they weren't really successful because we still lost people and we still suffered quite a lot of damage from theft. Obviously the people from the shanty towns, they know the area much better than we do, and they managed to get in really easily, get out with our stuff, no problems for them at all. Alright, so there you can see right around the site, and just now when I show you the aerial photographs, the whole site area there's a lot of lagoons right around the man-made island, really a lot of water, and it's one of the big problems that we had. So you can see this is now from the GTL side, and the white area over there, that's where our 5,300 man camp was going to be built. And you can see this is just a photo from that little tower. This is me standing on the tower now, taking a photo back into the gas to liquid plant, just to get a little bit of a view of how it works. Alright, there you can see the level of security on this photo. There you can see we had to have tremendous security to ensure the safety of all the people that's going to work there. This was the pioneer camp for the gas to liquid installation, and you can see not user friendly as such, but we did have air conditioning, and it was reasonably safe for us to work in this environment as long as we stayed within the perimeters of the secured areas. And that's just one of the things that you have to remember when you go and work in different countries is it's safety is your own concern, and you have to think about that. Alright, so when we arrived there, we obviously didn't have enough space for all of our staff and our labourers, and we had to consider different options. So we rented a few houseboats, and the houseboats became the permanent residences for some of the labourers. So what we would do is in the evenings, the houseboats would release from the wharfs, and they would sail out into the middle of the river and try and it sort of worked for a while. It was a little bit safer in the middle of the river until the pirates got boats, and then we had to come up with a new strategy. So there you can see that's a nice photograph of a houseboat. It looks like a big long just flat development, a bunch of containers stacked together that's been changed around into rooms and bathrooms. So at the end of the day, really convenient and easy to manufacture, and really simple to maintain as well. On these houseboats, the labourers had air conditioning, they had electricity, warm water, satellite TV, and of course dining facilities for everybody. And there you can see that's just the sort of the entry level stuff that we had to live with. At that stage, it didn't really matter. That's what we had, and we had to make it work for us. And there you can see there is a little kitchen. So for every say 20 to 30 people, there would be a small little kitchen area where they can prepare their own food mix. And there you can see there's a nice gas burner barbecue, and there's a Yemeni burner on the other side, and then of course a fridge and food processors that they can facilitate. This is just a photograph of the barge. Now that we use quite a lot of these barges, and they would bring all the containers and the heavy equipment. We couldn't get anything in. As I said, there are no roads. You either have to fly stuff in or bring it in by river. So all of the equipment, caterpillars, everything that we had to use on site came by barge, making it quite an interesting journey. Working in Nigeria, obviously you have to take note of the local government as well, so we had to spend a lot of money on what we call motivational spending to make our project go a little bit easier. And there you can see that's just another photo of what our accommodation units, our temporary accommodation units looked like for the first arrivals on site. And you can see the guys really tried. This guy left his shoes outside. They really tried to keep it nice and clean in a dusty environment, really hot. And there's just a photo of the showers that we had. So all in all, a totally functional organization. I think in many cases this is similar to what we see in the Western Australia or Central Queensland type mining environments, the FIFOs. I think those guys have more or less the same type of facilities. And there you can see these are just a few of the locals enjoying a little bit of off time in an air-conditioned area watching TV, and they are always happy to be on a photograph. I'm not sure why this guy isn't smiling. This is actually the first time that I see he's not smiling, but normally it's just really white teeth, and they're just happy to be on the photograph and be part of any kind of commercial activity, basically. So you can see Our air conditioning that we had to make sure that it stayed out of the sun and the elements. Not always that effective, but we tried. And there's our kitchen facility that we had for the first team that arrived on site. You can see we tried to really be a little bit more luxurious for them. It's really difficult to find tables and chairs of this quality in Nigeria. Everything that we had to do there, we had to import, so that became a logistics nightmare on its own as well. And there's our very happy Chevron security guard, quite happy to pose for a nice photograph. That's his small little area that he worked and lived in. And yeah. Alright, so there's another photo, and you can see there's the level indicators for the river. It is tide driven, so it does go up and down a little bit, but not as much as we would see at other rivers in Western Africa. Alright, so there's just another few photos of the site, vegetation that we had on there, the area again, and this is now on the other side of our inspection. There you can see the little hut at the background and the GTL plant already functioning over there. And this is right on the edge, and this is where most of our problems came from, because we could never take out all of the bush, and this is where most of the attacks came from. So we put up a really big fence, a 4-meter fence that had 2 or 3 corridors for dogs and armed guards, but even that did not deter the locals from taking our stuff. Alright, and there's my colleague Nuno Textera. He's a local there, or well, he was at that stage. Now he lives in South Africa, and Nuno and I worked on this project together. You can see there's some existing services left from the previous contractor. All of these things, obviously, later on in the later presentations, I'll show you the implications that we had with the existing services. Alright, so any visit to the GTL plant or Escravos is not complete unless you do an aerial inspection, and this was also one of the highlights for us to just make sure that we understand what it looks like. So there you can see there's the first photograph of the shanty towns of where, and it's really close to where the plant is. You can't see them because of the thick brush, and of course all of the water there, it's really all over the show. Lots and lots of mosquitoes and bugs, everything that can eat and bite you, they were definitely there. And there you can see there's a nice photograph of the site. There's that part that we saw right in the beginning, the existing services. And the security lights were somewhere on this corner over here. And this is now the big area. You can see there's a little bit of a line in the middle of the slide there. And the 5,300 man camp was going to be in this area over here. Alright, so this is the area that we ended up with. And that's the area that was consumed by the rest of the GTL plant. You can't really see the GTL plant there because it's really misty that day, and we'll see if we can find another photo. There you can see there's a nice one. There's our security, our little sheds and the security lights. Remember I said that there was a little bit of an opening and lots of small little lagoons and water features all around our man-made island. So everything that you see here was man-made. So everything here artificial, brought in specifically for this project on its own. There's our laydown area. This is where we lay down all the containers from as soon as we pick them up from the wharf, and they would come to the secure area and stay there until we got them, until we needed them on site for deployment. So you can see this is the existing wharf that we had to work with, and one of the photos that we saw earlier on, me driving through a gate, was that gate over there. And we stopped over there, and we'll show you another little photo there, the existing wharf. That's all that we had that we could work with, and that was really troublesome. So part of the contract was to install a new design or a new wharf so that we can get bigger ships in there or bigger pontoons to deliver the containers for us. There you can see that's the existing structures. Remember, this is where the pioneer team or the first team on the ground lived. This is the accommodation units for them, and the photos that we saw earlier were from this area over here. You can see there's the GTL plant already on the go. Alright, so there's the barge. Remember I showed you the barge earlier on. There's our barge, and there's the houseboats that we used to house our staff members. As I said, typically these would move off from the wharf to a little bit into the river, just to make sure that we maintained a little bit of a safety gap. Obviously later on the pirates got their own boats and made it really colourful for us to try and avoid them. There's just another photo of the site. And the dark area here that looks like a road, that's actually sandbags that's compared to our site. Right, so the gas to liquid plant is on that side over there, and it's really a reasonably big area that was constructed for this. And this area over here, that's where our 5,200 man camp is going to sit. Alright, there's the Navy's inspection boat at the wharf, and this is one of the wharfs that we took a photo of earlier on. Remember I showed you these metal linings, and as you can see, it's not the world's biggest wharf, and we had to make do with offloading all our containers from there. So part of the contract was to increase the size of this wharf. Nice photo of the existing plant, and I'll show you a photo that was taken in 2007 that shows how the plant has expanded. There you can see that's our laydown area, all the containers that we had. As I say, nothing available locally, so everything had to be imported, making it a little bit more interesting dealing with the locals, trying to figure out exactly how we're going to pay for it and how we're going to get the stuff through customs. Now, in Nigeria, they have what they call a banned import list. So if a product is on the banned import list, typically they won't allow the product to come into the country, and you would have to find it locally or a substitute locally. Alright, so interesting times. There you can see the shanty town. This is now the shanty town, and there's our fence, and it's right up against the fence. The shanty town is sort of creeped up, and there's actually people. It looks really dilapidated, but there's actually people living in these units over here, trying to make a living. And how they do it, they've got agriculture, and they obviously have, I don't know what they grow, drugs and stuff, marijuana, and that they sell to the locals to make a living, and obviously make our life a little bit more interesting. So there you can see there's our site layout that we had to work with, and all of these units represent accommodation units. And what we did is we split it into 3 levels. So we had management accommodation level, we had middle management accommodation levels, and then we had just for the laborers a separate accommodation. This H structure over here, this was the office facility that we had to construct, and we also had a big dining facility over there. And I'll show you the layouts for those just now, and in a later presentation I'll show you the actual photos of the sites. Alright, so there you can see this is now the first type of unit. This was basically for a senior manager, and you can see that it's a single unit with a small little desk and an area where they can have a little bit more of a relaxed time. Each guy had his own TV, and of course a separate bathroom shower combination. Alright, so senior management, this is what they would get. The middle management would get something slightly smaller, and there you can see it's still nice and private, single unit. Guy would also have a nice shower, nice toilet, everything on his own, but the unit is about half the size of that of the senior management that we saw earlier on. Type C, and this is now for, let's say, just below middle management, still not laborers. These would be typically staff controllers or somebody like a cook, executive cook or a chef or somebody like that. And there you can see there's the shared accommodation. They would share a small little room. Each would have his own locker over there, and there's we had to source all of the furniture, the beds, the mattresses, everything for this project. And there you can see this is now where we come to the labor units, and we managed to squeeze up to 384 people into one of these units, which is a feat on its own. And these units were all stackable units that we constructed on site. So all of them stackable, and we had multi-levels. The same with the shower and accommodation units. We had to provide, we used the rule of thumb, one toilet per 25 people, and this is what we came up with. We had to install these units for them. The reason why we went with these prefabricated units, obviously it's easier. They're the size of the container, so they fit onto a ship, they fit onto a truck, and it's easy for us to maneuver them around site in those terms. And there's our office block. Remember the H structure. There you can see we had to put in a number of meeting rooms for our client, and the client in this case was the EPCM, Chevron. ESS also had a few tables in here, so all of these tables, all of the office spaces belong to the client itself. So they asked for a fairly big office that could house all of their operational staff. You can see there's our toilets and wash hand basins over there, and this is really a nice layout for an office. The reason why we went for an H structure is because we struggled with the stability of the units, and by going for an H structure we maintained the integrity of the design. There's our dining facility, and in the dining facility we could do about 400 people in one sitting. So that means that 400 people can come in, have their lunch, and move out again. This in contrast to the project that I showed you last week. This one was a little bit more relaxed, so staff would come in, they would have between 25 and 35 minutes in which to eat, and then they would move out, and the next 400 people or 400 staff members would move in. Obviously there you can see this is where the kitchen preparation area was, and these units at the back, these are all refrigerated containers or coolers, and this is where we kept all of the stock. And you'll see that in the site layout we had to design this so that the trucks could easily move in here, just offload into the freezers, and it created almost a seamless delivery into the kitchen area for us. We had a different kitchen and dining facility for our management staff. Obviously the laborers, they were in the big unit, and the management staff, they had something a little bit more special, a little bit more luxurious, and also a different menu. And there you can see we could fit about 152 people in one sitting in there. So typically the management staff for this project would go through 2 sittings for each session. So 2 sittings in the morning, 2 in the afternoon, and 2 at night. Alright, and then of course we had to build a few recreational facilities. As with these FIFO camps, we see that staff members typically get bored really quickly, so we had to entertain them, and we had to come up with different ways of doing it. So we had gyms, gymnasiums, we had TV rooms and cinemas, or as close as the cinema as we could get, and also obviously you can see there's our pool and queues and everything that we tried to get. At that stage, internet was a bit of a mission. Everything was by satellite, made it really difficult for us to do. There's our recreational facility for the management staff. Also, you can see a little bit more luxurious, more space, less people, but more luxurious. And there's our medical facility. We also had to provide the client with a number of ambulances. So even the ambulances were sourced outside of Nigeria and imported for the plant's operation. Alright, in this photo, this was taken in 2007, and there you can see there's the original wharf that we spoke about. There's the new wharf that was constructed later on, and the 5,300 man camp is now just on the side of this photo over here. Alright, so you can see the plan did change quite considerably from the initial plan that we had, but that's just the nature of any project, well, basically in Africa. Alright, so there we go. That's the project that I wanted to share with you guys for tonight. Fiona, have you got any questions?
No, I found it really interesting.
Alright, so let me just see if I can work my little camera. I got tired of the office today and I decided to go home early. So that's why my little camera is a little bit. I normally don't use a camera at home, but yeah, it was an interesting project. It kept us really busy. I think in my life I've never done so many costing exercises than for this specific project. It was just tremendous, the amount of Excel spreadsheets that I created. I think I tried to count it at one stage, and it came up to something like 4,000 spreadsheets just for this project. So at the end of this project, when I left around about 2007, I was really Excel'd out, and the project is still not complete. It's still going on, and it's still being developed as we speak.
It would have been interesting, I think, the estimated solution when they're estimating. You have to bring in all the lights, all the beds, all the sheets, pillows, blankets.
No, that's true. That's definitely true, Fiona. And what I can do is I can maybe onto our BE website, I'll load a few examples of the costing sheets that I made at that stage. And I was responsible for the bed center, and it was a tremendous task because we had to find sheets and curtains and pillows and everything. Everything had to be imported and packaged, and we had to make sure that the stuff that was on the government's banned list that we sourced that locally in country, and we had to obviously bribe people to get a lot of the stuff there. So that's part of doing business in Africa.
Yes, I've heard that.
So Fiona, any how's things on your side? Are you doing okay with your studies at the moment?
I'm a bit behind.
All right.
I'm just coming into the maths side of things.
Okay.
And I've got a bit more work to do. I've moved to Mackay in the last sort of 3 weeks.
All right.
And started a new position with a building certifier, private certifier.
Okay.
So sort of a big learning curve there because I come from local government.
Okay.
And so lots of interesting stuff.
Well, it's always difficult to when you start moving from one job to the next one. It's always a bit of a mission to just get to know the systems and get to know the bureaucracy.
It's warm. The rents are very expensive.
All right.
It's a lot busier
Mm-hmm.
because I came from an area outside Bundaberg, and it was a little country town called Mount Perry.
All right.
And you could just about shoot a shotgun down the main street most of the time and miss everybody. And so it was very community orientated. So here you're sort of just one of the crowd. And
well,
it's sort of been. Sorry, go on.
I've heard that Mackay is growing faster than Rockhampton and Gladstone, so it's really a growing town.
Yeah, and the newspaper said the other day there's only 28 building blocks available to build on at the moment. So.
Yeah, but the mind just boggles, I don't know why the government won't release more land, it's just one of those things. The same with Rockhampton. It's, I'm sure on your way to Mackay, you drove through Rockhampton as well, and next to the university there's this huge new building site going up, and they're doing a big hardware store there. So we went onto the site today and talked to the contractor, and they all have the same message. The government or the local council is not pro-development. They don't really want the development, and I don't understand that. I mean, development sort of gets the feet there, that gets the town going. So it's always interesting to see the different ways that they look at business.
Yeah, I don't know whether it's because of this new coastal plan or overlay or something that's just been released this year, whether that has something to do with it.
Yeah. Fiona, what other courses do you run this term?
This is the only one.
All right, okay.
Back into it from, I deferred for 12 months.
Oh, okay, all right. Just to give yourself a little bit of a breather.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. All right, so if you don't have any other questions, I think I'll maybe close the meeting and I'll see you next Tuesday.
Yeah, it'll be Tuesday?
Yes, next week. I just changed it this week because it was Anzac Day, and I thought everybody would want to, spend some extra time with their friends and family on Tuesday and then rest on Wednesday. But next week we're back to our Tuesday sessions, so 8 o'clock on Tuesday night.
Yeah, I'm sorry I was late. It took me about 15 minutes to log in.
Oh, all right. Oh, sorry to hear that. Well, what I can do is I can make the room available, let's say 15 minutes earlier, and I'll make sure that I'm there so that we can sort out any problems that you might have. And normally, you can just give me a call in the office if you have any problems, and I'll direct you and try and help you from there.
Okay then.
Cool.
Well, thank you, Dr.
Alrighty, and hope you have a good night.
You too.
Alright, see you.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.